Justin, we all we all feel the same way. We are equally exhausted, Justin. But here we are with part 2. And before I jump into part 2, real quick recap. This is the cult mom murder trial. So Chloe is being charged with unaliving her child. The state is stating that she did that because her husband had 2 other wives. She didn't want to continue the lifestyle. So her only way out was to unalive the baby. The defense is stating absolutely not. She was a victim in this cult. She's been with him at a very young age. She was 17. He was 38. And they have been together about 3 years. And they had that 1-year-old child. She actually wanted to escape. She wanted to get away. They wouldn't let her leave. Then they talk about her mental state and the fact that they don't believe in doctors or anything. So no one would get her any help. Now, who's this guy? This is Justin. Sorry, his name is Jason. Look, he's draining me emotionally. The previous video is part 1 of his testimony because he was on trial. On that witness stand for like 3 hours. And he would just go off and ramble. He is a cult member. And he is the only cult member in addition to the baby's father and the 3 wives. So we're going to go to the next video, which is now the defense. After them being half asleep for 2 hours and him rambling, we're like, okay, we got you. Let's get into it.
Where that she left him in the middle of the night with the child and basically ran away from him, right?
Okay.
Matter of fact, it took place at the same house where this incident happened on December 8th of 2020. Did you know that?
No.
It happened at at Jerry's house.
Okay.
Part of what Z was trying to do with this group was to grow this group, right? He was constantly looking for other women to bring into his group here, right?
Are we not all constantly seeking the companionship of compatible individuals?
I'm asking about Z right now.
Okay.
Wasn't he always trying to talk to other women about bringing them into the group as well?
I mean, sure. Yeah.
Part of what he ultimately wanted to do was to have multiple children with multiple wives as well. Is that right?
That's what I want to.
Okay. He, in fact, right now, Anna
there's
just had a child.
There's a beautiful baby in this world that Gama just birthed. Yes, she did.
And Selig is pregnant today, right?
Selig's about to have one too. Yep.
His mentality is to grow his religious following, right?
You just use the word religion, which I feel like is inappropriate.
Okay, his mentality is to grow his following.
His mentality is to find like-minded individuals to participate with each other. As is mine. And that's what attracts us to each other.
But Mr. Spillers, he and you don't look for like-minded individuals. You and he look for strays, like castaway dogs on the side of the road. Isn't that true?
That's really ridiculous.
Is that not what you told him in a phone call with him at the jail just a few days ago?
Is it?
I'm asking you.
I don't know. I mean,
you and he have not talked about treating these women like strays, finding these women that you can bring into your group and treat them like strays. That's not a comment that you made in a phone call?
I don't know, maybe it was made in sarcasm.
Maybe it was.
I don't know. I don't remember every single word of every single thing that I've said. But no, I've never treated women in my life like that.
Well, you definitely treat them as submissive individuals, right?
No, I treat them as...
Women are subservient to you, right?
You can explain that.
Women should be in a place that is servant... Yeah, sure.
In servitude of the man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%. Yes.
Meaning that Benjamin or Z or Brian Joyce, whoever he is, he controls what they do. No, and if they don't do what he wants, they can get out, right?
Of course.
Right? He controls what they wear, right?
So you're asking...
Yes or no?
You're asking me...
Yes or no first?
I don't know the answer to this question.
He controls what they eat, right?
We have already discussed that there is a standard, and this is the same thing that it is with me and women that I've had in my life since then, since I've had in my entire life, when I've been a vegetarian, women who come into my life they're vegetarian, or you can not be together.
Right.
Yeah, so you're manipulating this into a control thing when it's just a standard that's set that can be avoided at any time.
If Kawani wanted to go have a hamburger at Wendy's, he'd kick her out of the car, right?
That's really a petty and childish way to describe something, and I mean, your rhetoric is utterly offensive. But no, I mean, why would she want to have what would motivate her to eat an animal? She's the one who's telling me.
Maybe she really didn't believe in all that.
Maybe. I mean, why not?
You testified earlier that she didn't really get to talk to her parents much, right?
Well, she was raped by her parents when she was younger and abused by them, according to her.
My question, sir, is she didn't talk to her parents much, right?
She did from time to time.
Are you aware there were times where Z would take her phone from her and she wouldn't have access to her phone to make calls to people?
Not when I was around.
Never saw that.
Never. I never saw him limit them like that. I mean, Shaylee, like, they still do things, independently. Like, if you want to use that word.
His control extended to you too, right? He told you could never touch her.
Yeah, that's a very common Orthodox thing, that men do not touch each other's wives, and I respect that. I'm not suggesting that men should touch each other's wives in any other sexual way. I'm just, a handshake. You couldn't even give her a handshake. Why would I want to? Why would I want to touch another man's wife? You started drinking urine because of him. I started drinking urine because Peggy Schindler told me about it, and I did my research online and did some self-edification. Perhaps you should do the same. But Peggy Schindler, I'm not drinking my urine, sir. Peggy Schindler got that information from him, right? Did she? I don't know. I'm asking you. Told me about it. I don't know. She knew him. Yeah, I mean, so what? Like, so there's like millions of people who drink their urine. There's like forums online with, tons of individuals, and this has become way more mainstream. And now there's like all kinds. Like I say, I mentioned Troy Casey, and I'd like to drop his name again because he's like a really prominent influencer online. And so I heard about urine therapy from Peggy. I immediately did my research about it. And I've heard about people, surviving on their urine, so I knew that it wasn't going to kill me, so I tried it. And then And you said you do it daily. I do. You still maintain contact with Z? Sure do. Day-to-day contact? Sure do. You've called him probably 10 times since you've been in the jail here in Cherokee County, right? Sure have. You've talked to him, I guess, beginning in August or September, even through today, about the mental state that you saw from Kawani.
Sorry, guys. There's going to be a part 3. But if you missed it at the beginning, he's talking about a 4th wife. And that 4th wife, this guy never met her. But what they do know, is that she left him in the middle of the night with his child. I don't know if they're going to bring her to testify. So I will keep you guys posted for what is this, part 3? Oh my God. That's how I feel. Follow and like for more, guys. Jason, I'm tired. This is part 3. If you aren't aware what this case is about, it's cult mom murder trial. Essentially, Chloe is being tried for unaliving her 1-year-old. State is stating that because she was part of a cult, the guy had 2 other wives. She was upset that he wouldn't, give up that type of life. She wanted him to herself. So she unalived their 1-year-old daughter. State defense is stating, no, that's not the case. In fact, she was in a cult. She was not allowed to reach out to family. She started having mental breakdowns. They knew about it, but because they didn't believe in modern medicine, they just gave her CBD and called it a day. And she had a psychotic episode. They are claiming insanity. So let's get into the final part of testimony. Jason, the friend, or lack thereof.
Totally. And your belief is, and you continue to tell him that your belief is that she was insane. I'm not making it to a legal standard of that, but you felt like she was insane.
I mean, yes, I do. I mean, call it insane, call it whatever you want. It's like, this woman was outside of her ability to discern what was even happening, and her behavior was erratic and out of character, and she would go in and out of these phases, and I would qualify that as insane from my perspective. I've never seen anything so severe in my life.
Okay. Now, let me back you up to this incident in November in Nashville with Miss Sandra Torres.
Do it.
And I know your testimony from what you told Miss Gropper is that you believe Miss Torres was the instigator of an aggressive, violent act here, right?
This is the incident where she tried to leave, according
You
to
did
her.
acknowledge that you were the one that got arrested
Yeah,
based on that incident, right?
Yeah, she was the one who called the cops.
Yeah. And you left, right, before the cops got there.
Yeah, before I got shot by a woman who was threatening me with gun violence.
You could have stuck around and talked to the cops about that, though, right?
So you're saying that I should have put myself in harm's way?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you drove a mile up the road and called the cops yourself. You didn't do that either, did you?
No, I didn't.
You left. Before you left, Z had put Chloe in the car with the baby and took off, right?
Kwani got in the car by her own free will, and it was actually her that insinuated that they needed to leave.
Okay,
like I said earlier, because she could see the...
But, sir, Ms. Torres called the police because she believed there was an issue going on there, right?
Ms. Torres called the police because, I don't know why she did.
She didn't have anything to do with you all.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's so bizarre that someone would go so far out of the way, especially, like I say, when I was carrying Kwani across the road, one of the individuals who lived in the apartment complex was walked out, and she walked by us and asked if we needed any help. And I said, no, we don't.
So maybe that lady just didn't want to involve herself with what was going on with you, right?
Or maybe that's probably what a normal person would do if they, saw some woman having a panic attack and all of the individuals around her trying to help.
Well, calling the police is not necessarily calling to get somebody in trouble. As you know, sir, you called the police yourself on December 8th because you knew there was a problem.
That's more like emergency medical.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what calling 911 does. It gets law enforcement. It gets medical personnel. It gets EMS people out there to determine what the issue is, right? Mm-hmm. And if they believe that Kwani was having a medical emergency that needed to get attention, they could take her to the hospital. They could take her to see a doctor, right?
Sure.
You didn't want that to happen.
I don't think that my desire has any reflection on the...
Z didn't want that to happen. He was the one directing that they get Chloe in the car and get out of there, right?
Actually, like I said, it was Kwani that initiated the sequence for them.
She was telling Miss Torres to call the police.
No,
she was telling Miss Torres to call her parents.
She was telling Miss Torres that she needed to call her parents. And then Miss Torres began behaving erratically, like I said, and began behaving belligerently and aggressively and threatening us.
When you left...
So then Kwani said that, she initiated the sequence for them to leave. She could see that this woman was like this drunken, you could smell the alcohol on her, that she was just this, drunken individual who wanted to involve herself and make probably so bored with her own life or whatever that she wanted to cause drama and involve herself in somebody else's business that had nothing to do with her.
You believe that Miss Torres involved herself in someone else's situation so
Yes.
she could get attacked by you and receive a broken eye socket?
Yeah.
Sir, this is a picture that's dated November 25th of 2020.
Okay.
That's a picture that Miss Torres has sent to us.
Okay.
She took of herself that day.
Continue to object to publishing evidence that has not been admitted yet.
I'm not admitting it yet,
It's
Judge.
being published to the jury. It's not been identified with an exhibit number. It's not been admitted.
So I just told you the story of what happened. And, that was never brought to trial. So your assumption...
Yeah, it was never brought to trial, sir, because you pled guilty to that.
I was never brought to trial because they would never give me a trial.
No.
Yeah, that's very much what happened. I mean, you can make assumptions, and
Sir, I'm not making assumptions.
you are. Making
I've seen the
assumptions.
documentation of your sentence that you received for that case out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
It
Like
says
I
you
said,
pled guilty to assaulting and inflicting serious injury as a misdemeanor on Mrs. Torres.
pursuant to Alfred law.
No, it actually doesn't say pursuant to Alfred law. That box isn't checked at all. It says you pled guilty.
Then that's misinformation. You could pull up the court records. I said.
That's who I got it from.
Well, then you should pull up the court records from August 29th, 2023.
That's the date that you pled guilty.
Yeah, I mean, it says, the judge said very clearly before the court that it was pursuant to Alfred law. So perhaps you have some kind of...
So you're saying there's a mistake in the document?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
From
You
what I
understand that an offered plea is still a plea of guilty, though, right?
Yeah, but the reason why I pled guilty is because they were actually, so they didn't give me they were refusing to give me bond dates. They were refusing to give me court dates. They were refusing to give me a trial.
They refused to give you those things because you had violated your bond before. Is that right?
Yeah, I was actually framed by and false evidence was submitted against me by Buncombe County.
Y'all look at the people in the back.
Really?
Absolutely.
Have you initiated a civil lawsuit against them for them?
Not yet, but I have spoken with some civil rights attorneys, and I have not initiated that sequence yet, but I have spoken with several attorneys.
And sir, you're currently incarcerated by the federal government, right?
Yes, I am.
For threatening a man online, right?
That's an allegation, which
I understand it's an allegation. You haven't been convicted of anything, and you stand absolutely innocent until proven guilty.
then I think that we should, not talk about that.
I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm not going to ask you what you did. I'm not going to ask you who it is. I'm not going to ask you any of those questions. But you are currently charged with that, right?
I have currently been charged with a crime.
14 counts of crimes, correct?
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Counts 1 through 14
Okay.
for communicating threats to kill someone.
Yeah, like I say,
That man is draining everybody. So essentially he's talking about the case that he has right now. That particular case, someone went in his drawer and he said, if you ever go in my drawer again, I'm gonna end you. That's what he said. He then goes on to talk about the fact that all of these things happen after Kalani unalived the baby, and that he wanted to talk about the trauma he has endured because of what he saw. So thankfully, shortly thereafter, the fence also was done. So I will keep you guys posted. We have multiple additional witnesses, and today is going to be day 3. Talk to you soon.